Welcome to this channel. In this video, we are going to talk about one of the greatest books titled as Thinking, Fast and Slow. This book by Daniel Kahneman is an insightful exploration of how we make decisions and judgments, often without realizing the influence of two distinct mental processes. Author names: System 1 and System 2. System 1 operates automatically, making quick, instinctual decisions, while System 2 is slower, more deliberate, and analytical. This audiobook, narrated in an engaging style, uncovers the ways these systems interact and often clash, leading to predictable patterns of bias and error in our thinking. Through relatable examples and groundbreaking research, author illustrates why people frequently make irrational choices, often guided by intuition over reason, and highlights the potential pitfalls of trusting too much in our gut responses. Listening to this audiobook will be a transformative experience for a variety of listeners. Whether you are a business professional aiming to improve decision-making, a student of psychology, or someone simply interested in understanding human behavior, this book will equip you with a deeper understanding of cognitive biases that shape everyday decisions. It offers practical insights that help listeners become more aware of their thinking patterns, promoting more rational choices in areas ranging from personal finance to career decisions and even social relationships. Engaging with Thinking, Fast and Slow takes you a step forward in life by offering tools to recognize and counteract biases, fostering improved self-awareness and better decision-making. Author's findings challenge conventional thinking and inspire listeners to question automatic responses, ultimately enhancing personal growth and helping achieve greater control over life's choices. In the first part of Thinking, Fast and Slow, titled Two Systems, the author introduces the fundamental idea of two mental systems, System 1 and System 2, that shape human thought processes and behavior. System 1 is automatic, intuitive, and operates quickly with little conscious effort, generating fast impressions and emotional responses to everyday stimuli. It's what helps us read facial expressions, recognize familiar patterns, and make snap judgments based on intuition. System 2, on the other hand, is slow, analytical, and deliberate, used for tasks that require focused thinking and logical reasoning, like solving a math problem or making a complex decision. Author explains that these two systems work in tandem, often with System 1 producing instant answers and System 2 either accepting these impressions or intervening when needed. For routine decisions, System 1 is efficient and generally effective. However, because it relies on heuristics, mental shortcuts, it is also prone to predictable biases and errors. For example, System 1's tendency to jump to conclusions can lead us to form beliefs or make decisions based on incomplete information or stereotypes. System 2 has the ability to detect these mistakes, but it is mentally taxing and doesn't always engage, particularly if the task doesn't seem important. A key feature of System 1 is associative memory, which enables it to make connections between ideas, images, or experiences quickly, shaping our impressions and beliefs. This is often helpful for making rapid decisions but can lead to biases like the halo effect, where an initial positive impression of someone influences our overall judgment about them. Cognitive ease is another concept author discusses in this part, explaining how the mind finds familiar, easy to process information more believable and pleasant, while complex or unfamiliar information triggers discomfort, often causing us to shy away from deeper analysis. Author also explores the concept of mental energy and how it affects System 2's performance. Because System 2 requires significant cognitive resources, it can easily become fatigued, which makes it more likely to accept System 1's suggestions without scrutiny. This phenomenon is known as ego depletion, where mental fatigue lowers self-control and the ability to focus. For example, after a long day of work, a person may find it harder to resist temptations or to approach tasks requiring effortful thinking. System 1's tendency to simplify and System 2's limited capacity for sustained effort create an efficient but imperfect partnership, often leading to cognitive blind spots. People are generally more likely to trust their initial reactions and less likely to engage System 2 unless the stakes are high or they are aware of potential errors. Author points out that most of our judgments and behaviors stem from System 1's automatic responses, with System 2 stepping in primarily for complex or unexpected situations. Through the two systems framework, author provides a basis for understanding the mind's dual nature and highlights why people often struggle with statistical thinking, logical reasoning, and self-control. This part introduces the reader to the primary mechanisms underlying intuition and analytical thought, setting the stage for a deeper exploration of how these systems influence judgment and decision-making throughout the book. The second part, titled as Heuristics and Biases, explores the mental shortcuts, or heuristics, that System 1 uses to process information rapidly. Although these shortcuts allow for quick decision-making, they also introduce predictable errors, known as cognitive biases. Author highlights several key heuristics and explains how they can distort judgment. One of the main heuristics discussed is the availability heuristic, which leads us to judge the likelihood of events based on how easily examples come to mind. For instance, if we frequently hear about airplane crashes, we might overestimate their frequency because vivid, memorable incidents are easier to recall. This heuristic is powerful, yet it skews our understanding by focusing attention on memorable rather than statistically common events, often leading to irrational fears or incorrect assumptions about risk. Another heuristic is representativeness, which involves assessing the probability of something by comparing it to an existing stereotype, rather than by using relevant statistical data. For example, if someone appears to fit the stereotype of a librarian, we might ignore the fact that there are statistically far more farmers than librarians. This reliance on resemblance can lead to the conjunction fallacy, where people mistakenly believe that specific conditions are more probable than general ones simply because they seem more representative. Author also introduces anchoring, where an initial piece of information, or anchor, heavily influences our subsequent judgments. This can be seen in price negotiations or estimates, where starting values shape our expectations even if they are arbitrary. Once an anchor is set, System 1 unconsciously adjusts around it, affecting decisions in ways we're often unaware of. This section also delves into the law of small numbers, which reflects our tendency to view small samples as representative of the larger population. Author shows that people often draw broad conclusions from limited data, leading to overconfidence and predictions based on insufficient evidence. He explains how this law impacts fields like medicine, where a few cases might suggest trends that don't hold true on a larger scale, and finance, where investors often overvalue recent performance. An important component of this section is cognitive ease, or the feeling of effortlessness associated with familiar information. When something feels easy to process, we're more likely to believe it's true. This can be seen in advertising or media, where repetition and simplicity make ideas seem credible, even if they lack a solid basis. Cognitive ease often makes people accept conclusions without critical thought, leading to overconfidence. Author emphasizes that these heuristics are deeply embedded in our thinking, allowing System 1 to generate rapid answers but often causing systematic errors. While System 2 has the potential to intervene and correct these biases, it typically requires mental effort and isn't always activated, particularly if the task doesn't seem complex or risky. By dissecting these heuristics and biases, author illustrates how our minds use shortcuts to make sense of the world but at the expense of accuracy. He encourages readers to recognize when they may be relying on faulty heuristics, advocating for a more conscious awareness of how our minds function. Understanding these patterns offers a chance to question intuitive judgments, improving both personal and professional decision-making. The third part of the book, titled Overconfidence, examines how people are often more confident in their knowledge, predictions, and abilities than the facts justify. Author explains that overconfidence stems from the interaction of System 1's fast judgments and System 2's tendency to endorse intuitive beliefs without question. This part emphasizes that, despite frequent confidence, our understanding of the world is limited, and randomness plays a much larger role in outcomes than we often acknowledge. One of the main contributors to overconfidence is the illusion of understanding. Humans have a natural tendency to create coherent stories out of limited information, often filling in gaps with assumptions that feel correct but may be false. Author explains that hindsight bias, or the "I knew it all along" effect, reinforces this tendency. When events are viewed in retrospect, they appear more predictable than they actually were, and people underestimate the role of chance, believing they would have foreseen the outcome. This illusion leads us to believe we understand situations better than we do, creating an overestimation of our predictive abilities. Another key concept in this part is the illusion of validity. Author describes how people often trust their judgments or predictions based on the confidence with which they were formed, regardless of objective accuracy. For instance, a stock analyst may feel certain about a prediction based on a pattern they see, even if the pattern is coincidental and not statistically sound. This effect is particularly prominent in areas where predictions are difficult or complex, such as financial markets, where high confidence can lead to risky decisions based on weak evidence. Author also explores expert intuition and its limits, noting that while experts often have valid insights in stable environments where patterns are consistent and feedback is immediate, their confidence in their judgments does not necessarily indicate accuracy. For example, in fields like medicine or investing, where feedback is delayed or patterns are inconsistent, expert predictions may not be more accurate than random guesses, though the experts themselves may feel highly confident in their predictions. The section introduces the concept of "what you see is all there is," WYCITI, which explains how people make decisions based on the information immediately available to them, without accounting for what they don't know. System 1 assumes that what we see is the full picture, leading us to ignore missing information and thereby overestimate our understanding of complex situations. This bias contributes to overconfidence, as people fail to recognize the gaps in their knowledge or the uncertainty in their predictions. Overconfidence also affects planning and forecasting, leading to the planning fallacy, where people underestimate the time, costs, and risks of projects. Author points out that optimism often drives ambitious projects forward but can result in costly delays or failures due to a lack of realistic assessment. The antidote to this fallacy, author suggests, is to take an outside view, which involves looking at similar cases and using statistical data to make more grounded predictions. Overall, the overconfidence part underscores that while confidence can inspire action, it doesn't guarantee accuracy. Author encourages readers to adopt a more cautious mindset, especially in areas that rely on uncertain information. Recognizing the limitations of intuition, the illusion of expertise, and the importance of incorporating statistical thinking can help mitigate overconfidence and lead to more prudent, informed decisions. The fourth part of this book delves into how people make decisions under conditions of risk and uncertainty, challenging the traditional view of rational decision-making assumed in economics. Author explains that people do not consistently make choices that maximize utility, as classic economic theory suggests, but instead often rely on emotional and contextual influences that lead to irrational preferences. This part introduces prospect theory, author's groundbreaking framework for understanding decision-making that won him the Nobel Prize. Prospect theory reveals that people perceive potential gains and losses differently, a concept known as loss aversion. Losses are felt more intensely than equivalent gains, so individuals tend to avoid risks that could lead to losses even when the odds favor them. For example, people are often reluctant to gamble on a fair coin toss where they stand to lose $100 but win only $150, despite the positive expected value. This aversion to loss drives many decisions, particularly in uncertain or high-stakes situations, leading people to avoid risks even when they might be rational. Author also explains the fourfold pattern of preferences, which captures how people respond to risk in 4 scenarios: large gains, large losses, and small losses. This pattern shows that people are risk-averse for gains and risk-seeking for losses when the stakes are high, but become risk-averse for losses and risk-seeking for gains when probabilities are low. For example, individuals often buy lottery tickets, risk-seeking with low probability of gain, but avoid insurance for unlikely events, risk-averse with low probability of loss. Framing effects are another key insight in this part, showing how the way a choice is presented significantly affects decisions. For instance, a medical treatment with a 90% survival rate is often preferred over one described with a 10% mortality rate, even though the two are equivalent. These framing effects reveal that people are sensitive to context and language, often swaying toward choices that sound more positive, regardless of their actual value. Another important concept is mental accounting, where people treat money differently depending on its source or intended use. Author explains that people often separate finances into different mental accounts, which can lead to inconsistent choices. For example, someone might splurge a bonus on a luxury item while being frugal with their paycheck, even though, financially, the source of the money should make no difference. Finally, author critiques the economic notion of the rational agent, and the assumption that people consistently make logical, utility-maximizing choices. He argues that the traditional model does not capture real human behavior, as individuals are influenced by emotions, biases, and situational factors. Instead, author's two-system model provides a more accurate view of human decision-making, where System 1 often guides choices impulsively and System may second or may not intervene with rational thought. In this part, author advocates for designing choices in a way that helps people make better decisions, often through nudging or framing. By understanding how people's preferences are affected by context, it's possible to design environments, such as retirement savings plans or health insurance options, that lead to more beneficial outcomes without restricting choice. Through these insights, choices shows that human decision-making is complex, driven by subjective perceptions and emotional responses, rather than purely logical calculations. Recognizing these patterns can help individuals make more balanced choices and provides a foundation for policies that can guide better decisions in uncertain, risk-laden scenarios. The fifth part of this book, titled Two Selves, explores the distinction between two perspectives within each person, the experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self lives in the present moment, perceiving life as it unfolds. In contrast, the remembering self reflects on past events, summarizing them as memories and using these recollections to make future decisions. Author argues that these two selves can have different priorities and perceptions of satisfaction, often leading to choices that favor oneself over the other. Author introduces the peak-end rule and duration neglect to explain how the remembering self evaluates experiences. The peak-end rule suggests that people remember an experience based largely on its most intense point, the peak, and its ending, rather than the total sum of all moments. Duration neglect shows that the length of an experience has little influence on how it is remembered. For example, if a painful medical procedure ends on a less painful note, patients are likely to recall it as less unpleasant than a shorter, uniformly painful one. This can result in individuals making decisions that prioritize memorable moments over sustained comfort or pleasure, sometimes exposing the experiencing self to avoidable discomfort. Another important insight in this part is the conflict between happiness in the moment versus remembered satisfaction. For instance, someone might endure a difficult, stressful journey because of the anticipated satisfaction of the memory it will create. The experiencing self might suffer through the present challenges, but the remembering self prioritizes the story it will later recount. This distinction has implications for how people pursue life satisfaction, as the remembering self often dominates major life choices, guiding people to focus on memorable achievements or peak experiences rather than consistent daily happiness. Author also addresses well-being and how the two selves affect the measurement of happiness. Traditional measures of happiness, such as surveys or economic indicators, often capture only the remembering self's perspective. Yet, the day-to-day contentment of the experiencing self, such as through social interactions, health, and leisure, contributes significantly to well-being. Author suggests that a balanced understanding of happiness requires attention to both perspectives, as they shape different aspects of life satisfaction. In discussing policy implications, author argues that recognizing these two selves can improve approaches to measuring well-being and guide decisions in health care, retirement planning, and other areas. For example, public policies that focus on reducing suffering, as felt by the experiencing self, may differ from those promoting meaningful life achievements, valued by the remembering self. In summary, two selves underscores how our memories, shaped by the peak end rule and duration neglect, influence life decisions in ways that don't always align with present happiness. This part closes the book by encouraging a more nuanced view of happiness and decision-making, taking into account how both the experiencing self and the remembering self shape our sense of fulfillment and contentment over time. In the conclusion of Thinking Fast and Slow, author reflects on the book's key insights, focusing on the distinctions between System 1 and System 2, the contrast between theoretical, econs, and real humans, and the roles of the experiencing and remembering selves. He reaffirms that System 1, with its quick, intuitive judgments, and System 2, with its slower, effortful thinking, together shape our decisions but often lead to biases, overconfidence, and errors in complex situations. The book challenges the notion of a rational, econ, agent from economic theory, showing that real people act irrationally, swayed by emotions, framing effects, and loss aversion. Author's prospect theory explains how people weigh losses more heavily than gains, resulting in choices that deviate from rationality. In discussing the two selves, author illustrates how our decisions often prioritize memorable experiences over consistent happiness, favoring peak moments over duration. He emphasizes the importance of self-awareness in recognizing cognitive biases and advocates for designing environments that help people make better decisions, while encouraging a more reflective approach to counteract these natural biases. If you're into content that helps you grow and improve, don't forget to like and share this video. Hit subscribe to stay updated, and check out our other videos for more. We'd love to hear from you, so leave a comment with your feedback. Your input helps us get better for you. Thanks a lot for watching.